Who do you want the Raiders to draft in round one of the 2024 NFL Draft? Coming up here on today's show, I'm going to give you the top 5 players that I believe Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce could potentially tell Roger Goodell, walk up to that podium and say, this is our guy. Coming up here on the Raiders Report, the top 5 players that the Raiders could select. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and if you don't know, Jeremy Chuggs and I are going to be live on Draft Day, which, depending on when you watch this, could be today at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got those notifications turned on because we're going to be partying with the nation, and I don't want you to miss it. So round one starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Very important to note that we're going live at 6:30 p.m. The Raiders have the 13th overall pick, and I would say the biggest needs for the Silver and Black: quarterback, corner, offensive tackle, offensive guard, and the wide receiver position. But guess what? We're not only going to be live just for round one. We're also going to be live for round 2, round 3, round 4, 5, 6, and 7, all 7 days, and I have not been excited for a draft like this in a long time. I was sick to my stomach watching Gruden and Mayock. I was sick to my stomach watching Josh McDaniels eat corn the long way. Finally, I'm ready for this team to go in the right direction. So coming up here, I have ranked the top 5 players the Raiders want to draft in round 1. I'm going to work my way from 5, and I'm going to go all the way down to 1. So that means the guy at 5 is on their board, but the guy at 1 is the guy that they want the most. 2, 3, 4, I think might be the most likely, and we'll get into all of that. So number 5 coming up here is Michael Penix Jr. I am not saying that Penix is the 5th best player on their big board. I am saying that from a odds standpoint, from what I understand the Raiders are looking for, Penix is the 5th player that they are looking to target in round 1 of the 2024 NFL Draft. The reason why Penix would be the selection here is Jayden was never available to the pick. We know the Raiders try to trade up to number 2. We know the Raiders have made calls about moving up to get their guy. Guess what? If Jayden's not available, the next quarterback that I believe this organization targets is Michael Penix Jr. I will say, though, this is not going to be a pick at 13. The Raiders, I will repeat, are not going to take Michael Penix Jr. at 13 if, based on what the beat reporters are reporting, is true. This would be more of a Raiders trading back into the back end of round 1. That also means that they probably took somebody else at number 13. But also, to make this pick here, you better be damn confident in Thayer Munford at offensive tackle, or you better be very confident in the offensive tackle depth in this draft, because if you don't take an offensive tackle at 13, let's say you went Terry and Arnold, you trade back up and take Michael Penix Jr., you better be really, really confident in those players. So the reason why the Raiders would take Penix at 13 is I wouldn't love the pick, but I'd be excited about it. Personally, I would rather the Raiders go offensive tackle or corner at 13, but I will also say that I do really, really believe that Penix slides down the board here a little bit. He's 6'3", he's 213 pounds. He's got the ability to throw the hell out of a football. 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, close to 5,000 yards last season. The best game that I watched out of any quarterback this past year was his game against Texas. He was on one. Really, really struggled, though, that following game against Michigan in the most important game of the season. I'll go into my top 4 players that I believe the Raiders are targeting in round 1, but I got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That's the Game Time saying. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Obviously, terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Some of the things that Chuggs and I really, really like about Game Time is they got the all-in prices. I also like that you can see the seats. I also love that they have event cancellation protection. Imagine making a pick and being like, I don't want that pick anymore. This is bust-proof. Shout out to Game Time. Let's go to number 4 on my list. It is Quinion Mitchell, the corner from Toledo. I am simply saying to you that if Quinion Mitchell and Michael Penix Jr. are both on the board, I believe that this organization will, in fact, go with Mitchell. I also know that the Raiders really like Terry and Arnold, and the way that they would take Mitchell here at 13 is if Arnold would be off the board. You also need to know that the offensive tackle depth is really solid this year and that the Raiders would be more confident in Munford than the other cornerbacks that they have on their roster. So if you were to look at your roster from top to bottom, am I more confident in Thayer Munford than Brandon Faison? I am more confident in Thayer Munford. Am I more confident in Thayer Munford than Jacoria Bennett? I'm more confident in Thayer Munford. This could be a reason why you decide to go with a corner at number 13. And I'll also say this, he's dominated everywhere. In college, I get it, at Toledo, but he also dominated at the Senior Bowl. Was by far the best player there. And when you got a dude that's like built the way that Mitchell is and is showing the upside that he has with his outstanding burst, his quick recovery speed, his competitive nature, the ball skills of a corner, yet he tackles like a safety, Quinyon Mitchell might have the highest upside out of any corner in this year's draft because of what he's already shown you on tape. He's 6 foot, close to 200 pounds. Put up 18 pass breakups, and the fact that people were even targeting him at Toledo blows my flipping mind. This dude is a standout corner with an elite last name, and if you're able to put him with the silver and black, you have your priority one at corner. He's your guy. Next to Nate Hobbs, next to Jack Jones. It's a whole lot of swagger there on that secondary. Let's go to number 3 here on my list. It is Talisi Fuaga, the offensive tackle from Oregon State. So again, if all 3 of these players are available at pick number 13, I am saying that they would go with Fuaga over Mitchell, over Michael Penix Jr. And the reason why the Raiders would draft Fuaga is because they believe offensive tackle is a bigger need than corner. Or the other option there is that they think the cornerback position is a little bit deeper than offensive tackle, though I don't really think that that's to be the case. The other reason why you would go with Fuaga here is because either you don't believe in Thayer Munford at all, or the plan for the Raiders is to move Munford to offensive guard. This could also mean that the Raiders want to trade back for a Michael Penix Jr. Like, to me, if you're going to take Penix, I do think that you have to be okay with the idea of Munford playing there. Now, sure, maybe you're open to the idea of kicking Colton Miller over to the right side, something crazy like that, right? Because you want to be able to protect your blind side. But if the Raiders are legitimately serious about drafting Penix, do you draft an offensive tackle like Fuaga at 13, and then you figure out a way to go up and get Penix? Because if Fuaga is the only right tackle that this organization really, really likes in round 1, do you take the risk on taking Penix and then not getting your guy? A lot of different things to consider. His pass protection technique is outstanding. Could get a little bit better in the run game. He's a violent player. He's a tone setter. 0 sacks allowed in the 2 years at Oregon State. I love this guy's film. And, like, when I look at what I want in an offensive lineman and an Antonio Pierce-based team, I want a guy like Talisi Fuaga. Out of all the players that I think is maybe one of the least likely to bust, I also know Telesco loves offensive tackles. Fuaga is definitely a name to put some money on in terms of who the Raiders pick in round 1. Let's go here, though, to the guy that I believe is the most likely pick for the silver and black at 13. It is Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama. Antonio Pierce and Arnold already, from what I understand, have a very good relationship. AP wants to prioritize the cornerback 1. That's what he said, and this is the way to do it. If you're the Raiders, I believe that you end up taking this pick again because they think that he's the best player on the board and that Antonio Pierce goes, okay, we're going to go with a different route here. We were unable to get Jayden Daniels, so let's try to go with a defense that legitimately can win a championship. Terrion Arnold, Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones. Then you got Epps, Merrick on the back end, followed by Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz, Christian Wilkins, and Tyree Wilson, Adam Butler, John Jenkins. That is a defense combined with Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo, plus all the players that they're going to draft. That's a legit defense that could win a championship. I think the other reason why you have to consider taking Arnold over Fuaga or over a J.C. Latham is because of the depth at offensive tackle is outstanding. But it's also fit. Like, I don't know if there's a better fit on defense at corner than Arnold in this year's draft. With his scheme versatility, he's not afraid to go up near the line of scrimmage. That competitive nature, that swagger makes him a perfect player, and the fact that he is a very good man cover corner with outstanding athletic ability, you're looking at almost a perfect profile of what the Raiders are looking for in a corner. And it's kind of funny that both Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell are both the exact height and weight in terms of when they started. When the draft evaluation process happened, that's when we get a lot of our height and weight stuff. But like, Arnold was not even like the number 1 corner on his team with Kool-Aid McKinstry. He was tested a lot. But this guy has the upside, again, to be a very, very good fit here with this defense. So let's play a little bit of a game. I have mentioned 4 names thus far of who the Raiders would want to take in round 1. If you could only draft one out of the names that you see up on screen, and for the sake of the show, let's say all 4 of these players are available at pick 13, which I do actually think all 4 will be available. Are you going to go with Fuaga type TF? Are you going to go with Terrion Arnold type TA? Maybe you're going to roll with Quinion Mitchell type QM, or are you going to go with Michael Penix Jr.? I want you to type MP. I would rather the Raiders go corner at 13, and I know I've kind of gone back and forth on this idea for a long time, but I would rather the Raiders go either Terrion Arnold or Quinion Mitchell to make that defense the best possible and from top to bottom it could be. I'm also more confident in the tackle depth in round 2, round 3, round 4. More confident in that tackle depth than I am in the cornerback depth in round 2, 3, and 4. And because of that, that's why I would take a corner. I'd also say that I believe in Thayer Munford more than I believe in a Sam Webb, a Jacorian Bennett, a Brandon Face on these other corners that if the season started today, you'd have to put them in the lineup. So all of those reasons are why I would rather the Raiders go with either Terrion Arnold or Quinion Mitchell. If they are unable to trade up and get this guy here, his name is Jayden Daniels, and this is the number 1 player that the Raiders are trying to draft on Thursday, April 25th, when the 2024 NFL Draft gets underway. The problem is you got to trade up to go get him. You got to even potentially move up to 2. I know that the Commanders are saying that they're not going to trade out of the number 2 pick. Maybe it's just their GM trying to boost up the draft stock a little bit. But the only way the Raiders are getting Jayden is if the Commanders draft either Drake May or J.J. McCarthy at number 2. Then they have a better trade proposal than the Minnesota Vikings to be able to move up to 3. Maybe the Patriots trade back with Minnesota. The Vikings take either J.J. McCarthy or Drake May. Both are reportedly they're higher on that guy. But if you're Las Vegas and you were willing to try to see what it costs for number 2, that tells me if Jayden's on the board at 3 or 4, they will do everything in their power to make it happen. And when you watch the tape of this guy, I mean, it's spectacular to watch. And I'm a sucker for a dude that gets better and better and better every single season. And that's one thing that Jayden was able to do. He's got that rare blend of playmaking talent, the command from the pocket. You can see how smart he is in his pre-draft reads. I mean, he's really taken huge leaps forward from not just being an athlete, from being a quarterback. That IQ is, I think, going to be a great fit with AP. And my biggest knock on him is that slender frame. He needs to learn how to not take unnecessary, violent hits. But, maybe he fills out a little bit. I mean, look at a lot of these quarterbacks when they come out in the draft, and then the way that they look after an NFL weight room, an NFL team, they put on a little bit of weight. We see it time and time again. I know that the number 1 player that the Raiders want to draft, his name is Jayden Daniels, and that is why he is number 1 on my Raiders round 1 draft targets. So again, if you enjoyed this, take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, post it on Twitter at Mitchell Renz 365. Don't be afraid to tag also at Jeremy Chugs. I did want to throw in some honorable mentions, though, just based on here are some other names to keep in mind. J.C. Latham could be another pick that the Raiders look at for 13. Joe Alt, if you told me who's the one player the Raiders would trade into the top 10 for, not name a quarterback, I actually would say it's Joe Alt, and I would look for that at number 9 ahead of the New York Jets. Troy Fatano, there's been some medical red flags that have popped up recently, though his tape does really, really remind me of Rashawn Slater, who Telesco ended up drafting. Olu Fashanu is another name that I would throw out there if he ends up sliding down the board a little bit. And then, if I'm going to say that the Raiders have a chance to trade up into the back end of round 1 for Michael Penix, what happens if Penix is gone at 16, let's say, to the Seahawks, who are reportedly interested? Could the Raiders trade up into the back end of round 1 for Bo Nix? I hope not. But I will say that it's been something at least thrown out there. Here are all the players that I would say have a chance to go off the board for the Raiders in round 1. But one more time before I get out of here, Chugs and I have been working all week, all month to get the NFL draft ready. Hopefully you tune in on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, because right from the jump, we're going to blow the freaking doors off this place. And you might not love our analysis on every player, but I hope during draft day, we can all agree that we're all going to come together, we're all going to have a good time, and that we're all going to ball out harder than anybody. Giggity. Anybody else on YouTube, I need y'all to help me and Chugs out. Let's do it.